Section 8 of Weird Tales Double Feature, The Death Pit and In Kashla's Garden by Oscar Schisgall. This LibriVox recording's in the public domain. Read by Ben Tucker. In Kashla's Garden, Chapter 3. Jubilant in an unholy, demoniacal way, Roger Byrd motored into New York in his own yellow roadster. On the journey he gloated. What splendid dreams were approaching realization. The death of tyranny! He decided to follow his preconceived plans in passing the day, lest any deviation from his normal habits be construed as worthy of suspicion. Accordingly, he lunched at one of his clubs and tarried in a merry conversation with one of the other members. Over cigars and jolly anecdotes he sat until 2:30, and he laughed often and heartily, though his merriment occasionally sounded queerly shrill, strained. Then he occupied himself in the selection of a town car, a task that consumed most of the afternoon. It was 6 o'clock when he finally started homeward, and a flat tire delayed him another half hour. Finally, however, at almost 8 o'clock, Roger Byrd drove within sight of his imposing white residence. As he neared it, his heart thundered, his whole being shook. How would he be greeted? By news of Kashla's death, of course. The servants would chatter in confusion, informing him that they had tried to telephone his clubs, but all attempts at locating him had been futile. Oh, he could visualize the calamitous scene, and it filled him with palpitant delight. Twilight had settled on the country, a grayish-purplish twilight, strangely hazy. In the western skies flamed a few streaks of orange and yellow. Their glow permeated the vagueness of oncoming night. Byrd drove on, already conscious of the heavy perfumes emanating from Kashla's wondrous garden. He turned the car into the driveway, while every beat of his heart seemed a violent explosion. He was, he knew, on the very brink of freedom. More than that, by this time, he was free. Toward the garage he directed the roadster. Perhaps 20 feet he rode into the grounds. And then, with an impulsive motion, he jammed on his brakes. The car stopped with a jerk that sent him lurching forward. Very still he sat, gasping, aghast, dumbfounded. He was staring toward that bower canopied with rambling red roses, where Kashla had been seated in the morning. And as he stared, his forehead became dripping wet, and every trace of color ebbed from his cheeks. A sense of abject hopelessness, more insufferable than pain, swept through him. It was the crash of dreams, the bursting of the bubbles he had blown. For there, under the roses, smiling at him sweetly, sat the white-clad Kashla. In the hazy light he saw her hand languidly rise to beckon him, and he went to her, dazedly. "Have you bought the town car?" she asked when he stood before her. Mutely he nodded, his eyes round and stupefied. "That is good," murmured Kashla, her fingers straying to wind about the stem of a dangling rose. "I see, my dear, dear husband, that you are surprised, no, shocked, because you find me still alive, eh?" The taunt in her low tones tortured him. The perfume of the flowers made his senses ache with their load of sweetness. He was perspiring copiously now, and his hand unsteadily brushed across his moist forehead. "What do you mean?" he demanded defiantly, his voice hoarse. "Oh, why should we play innocent with each other, Roger?" Not once did her smile vanish. Over her fragile figure the purple twilight settled, like a mantle of unreality. She shrugged. "Ozul saw through the bathroom window." "Ozul saw?" gasped Byrd, terrified. "Of course. He saw you toying with the bottles. So I was wise, my dear, and I did not take my tonic today. Ozul is very loyal to me, you know." In his devastating chagrin, Roger Byrd could have shrieked. Instead of freedom, he had encountered failure. But somehow he managed to restrain his wild impulses and stood motionless. Kashla, the slender, ethereal Kashla, lavished her smile upon him. "I cannot altogether blame you, my good husband," she said, every word mocking him in that subtle, melodious way. "I have been very severe with you, but when one tries to murder, one must suffer some punishment." Trembling, Byrd attempted to exonerate himself by blurting, "It was an accident. I broke the bottle." "It was no accident," calmly answered Kashla. and you will be punished. I shall tell you how, Roger. Mr. Curry, your lawyer, is waiting for you in the house." "Mr. Curry?" he repeated mechanically. "Yes. Oh, he has already told me you wish to be rid of me." Mentally, Bird cursed. What an idiot the attorney was for babbling things. With all her mellifluous placidity, the slim Kashla went on. "I do not want to send you to prison. What use is a husband in prison? But I want your friend Mr. Curry to know what you have tried to do today. After that, I think he will not be so anxious to help you." Bird recoiled, stricken by fear. His eyes were round and ablaze. "I can't tell him," he cried. "Oh, yes, you can, and you shall. Do not be afraid. He will not send you to prison. He thinks too much of your family. But I want him to know what you did." "I can't tell him," groaned Bird. "You shall." "I can't. I... And then he encountered Kashla's suddenly narrowed eyes, twin specks of fire that burned their way into his very brain. He felt a dizziness surge over him. He swayed. He knew his will was under her dominion, and now she was exerting her fantastic power, sending him to confess to the lawyer. Roger Bird went. He could not help going. He was completely governed by Kashla's will. His very thoughts were dictated by her desire. Like a creature in a dream he walked, entranced and impotent, and Kashla remained under the roses in her favorite bower, looking after him. In the orientally adorned drawing room, Bird found Mr. Curry and 2 other men. Who these were, he did not know, nor did he dare speak in their presence. Yet words somehow gushed to his tongue, words he could not suppress, words sent there by Kashla. He turned to Mr. Curry. It occurred to him that the attorney sat strangely pale and grave. Bird bowed. In low tones that poured from him in a monody, he said, "Mr. Curry, today I tried to murder my wife. I substituted poison, iodine, for her tonic." And as soon as he had uttered those words, Roger Bird sensed a change well through him. The power that had been clutching his mind released its hold. He remained suddenly his own master, thinking clearly. But he quivered as he gaped at Mr. Curry, and he opened his mouth to a circle of astonishment. For Mr. Curry, as well as the 2 other men, had sprung toward him. Now the lawyer was grasping his arm, shaking it violently. And in a choking voice he cried, You did that, Bird." Momentarily, Bird was frightened by the tremulous vehemence. Then, while a wan, helpless smile twisted his lips, he mumbled, "Ozil, the gardener, would have told you anyway. She'd make him." "But the gardener swore he knew nothing," ejaculated Mr. Curry. The confident assertion caused Bird to frown. Had Kashla lied to him? He sucked in a sharp breath. What did Mr. Curry mean? "My wife," he replied stiffly, "told me he knew everything." Mr. Curry stepped backwards and looked blankly at the other 2 men. Then he peered more intently at Bird. "Your wife said that?" he demanded. "When did she tell you that?" "Why, just a moment ago in the garden." Mr. Curry gulped, wet his lips. Slowly his 2 hands were lifted to grasp and shake Roger Bird's shoulders. "Are you crazy?" the lawyer whispered. "Your wife drank poison and died at 4:30 this afternoon." End of In Kashla's Garden. End of Weird Tales double feature, The Death Pit and In Kashla's Garden, by Lillian Schisgall.